Hi everybody, my name is Jens Larsen. The question that you're probably asking yourself is, am I an arpeggio master? Or maybe you're just looking for some more material that you didn't check out and you want to have some new ideas that you can incorporate into your solos. In this video I'm going to go over 7 licks using all the different arpeggio types that I could think of. And if you're completely convinced that there's one that I didn't talk about already now, then just leave a comment and see if you were right at the end of the video. And of course, if there was one that I did leave out, you can also leave a comment on that. If you want to learn more about jazz guitar and improve the way that you solo or check out some new chord voicings, then subscribe to my channel. If you want to make sure not to miss anything, then click the little bell notification icon next to the subscribe button. Basic arpeggios may seem kind of obvious because, of course, if we're playing a D minor 7 chord, then we're also going to be playing a D minor 7 arpeggio, and the same for the G7 and the C major 7. At the same time, they are the basic arpeggios, and the better you are playing them, the better you know them, and the more melodies that you can make with them, the better your playing is going to sound. So you're never going to be wasting your time if you're checking out more ways to play the basic arpeggios. The first example used a minor 7 arpeggio, a dominant 7 arpeggio and a major 7 arpeggio. And now with this example we actually have all of the diatonic arpeggios found in a major scale, because now we also have the one on the 7th degree which is a minor 7 flat 5 arpeggio. As you can see here, I'm using different arpeggios on the chords, so I'm using the arpeggio from the 3rd of each chord. So that means on the D minor 7 I'm using the one from the 3rd as an F major, so an F major 7 arpeggio. On the G7 the B half diminished, and on C major an E minor 7 arpeggio. And this idea of using the arpeggio from the 3rd of a chord is really useful if you want to have some more options, and that's one of the first places you want to check if you're looking for some new melodies. This example is introducing an arpeggio that's really useful not only if we want to play diminished chords because it's a diminished arpeggio, but also if you want to play a dominant with a flat 9. So in this case I'm using the B diminished, even though I'm playing it from an A flat actually. But the B diminished, so the arpeggio from the 3rd, the dim arpeggio from the 3rd of the G7 to get a G7 flat 9 sound. And this is coming out of, well, you can look at this as coming out of diminished scale harmony, but it's probably in most cases more appropriate to think of it as coming out of harmonic minor. So in this case, when I'm playing the D minor, G7 to C major, then we're kind of borrowing the G7 from C minor and playing harmonic minor on it. So C harmonic minor to get this arpeggio. On the C major 7, I'm using an arpeggio with an extension. So I resolve to the E, and then I go down to the C, and from here I'm playing a C major 7 with a 9. And using arpeggios with extensions can also be quite useful. I have a video where I'm talking about how Wes uses this. He uses both like the major 7 with a 9 arpeggio and the minor 7 11 arpeggio quite often. In the first examples I was mostly concerned with using arpeggios from the 7th chords, and that's because of course in jazz then the basic chord type that you're going to have is going to be a 7th chord, so those are also the first arpeggios you want to work with. But we do use triads really a lot, and they're extremely useful arpeggios to check out as well. So in this example I'm using a minor triad from the root, so on the D minor 7 I'm using a D minor triad. I'm also using the triad from the 3rd, which is an F major triad. And then on the G7 altered I'm playing first an F diminished triad, so, and then an E flat or a B augmented triad. And then on the C major 7, the triads that we usually talk about are going to be the major, minor, diminished and augmented. But actually the sus4 triads are really useful in improvisation as well, and that's what I'm using on the C major 7. So first an E sus4 triad, then a D sus4, and then just a short melody to tag the example. Quartal arpeggios are really a big part of the modern jazz sound, together with the superimposed pentatonics that they are also really closely related to. In this case, I'm using 2 different quartal arpeggios. I'm using a 4-part quartal arpeggio on the D minor 7, so that's played like this. This is one way of doing that, where I'm playing it 2 notes per string. You can of course also play it 1 note per string, but that's a little bit more tricky for your right hand. And then on the G7 altered, I'm playing first an arpeggio, so a 3-part chordal arpeggio from the B flat, so the sharp 9, like all extensions, sharp 9, flat 13, and then flat 9, and then I'm going into this chordal arpeggio where it's 3rd, 7 and sharp 9, and then resolving that to the G on C major 7, so the 5th, and then adding an arpeggio from the 7th of C major 7, so B, E and A, which is also really giving me a C major 7 with a 13 sound. Another great structure that's closely related and almost like an inversion of the chordal arpeggios is the quintal arpeggios. And where the chordal arpeggios are stacking 4th intervals on top of each other, so here the quintal arpeggios are just stacking 5th intervals. So here I'm using it on the D minor 7 first, so D and then a 5th up to A and then another 5th up to E. And I'm doing the same thing from the 3rd of the chord, so from F up to the C and then up to the G. And then on the G7 altered, I'm using 2 arpeggios that are really useful for sort of a melodic minor sound. That's first the major 7 sharp 5, so here from the 3rd of the chord, so B major 7 sharp 5 over a G7 altered, so that's this one. And then I'm using a descending D flat 7 flat 5, or you can also look at it as being a G7 flat 5, so that's, and then resolving that to C. And here in this case I'm using a C Lydian sound, and the way I'm using that and the way I'm getting that across is playing a C major 7 flat 5 arpeggio, so that's this one. So the C major 7 flat 5 arpeggio actually is also really nice to use for altered dominance and for dominance with a 13 and a lot of other chords actually. I have a video on that that's pretty old, but you might want to check that out because it's a very useful structure to have in there to spell out a lot of different sounds. In this video I'm going to give you some examples of how you can use these arpeggios, but if you want to really check them out and you're looking for videos on how to play them and see some more examples of them, then just leave a comment on that, because then I can give you a link for it. I'll link to some of them in the description, but if you're looking for something, I have videos on most of these where I'm spending an entire video working with them. And if I try to put that in this video, then it would be 3 hours long. The 2 arpeggio types that I'm using in this example are 2 personal favorites that I use really a lot. So the first one is a shell voicing arpeggio. Now, shell voicing is taking a standard 7th chord, so in this case for instance an F major 7, and then leaving out the 5th, and then you get this type of voicing. That works really well as a chord, and you can use it for all sorts of things there, but you can also use it as a very nice arpeggio because it has first a 3rd and then a 5th interval, so it's a very consonant melody. I'm using that on the D minor 7 and on the C major 7. So first on the D minor 7 I'm using it from the 3rd, so an F major 7 shell voicing, and then a D minor 7 shell voicing. And then on the C major 7 I'm also using it, and here I'm just using sort of the C major 7 shell voicing, so just the basic shell voicing, but getting a slightly different melody because I don't have the 5th in there. On the G7 altered I'm using a dominant 7th arpeggio that I really like to use if I want to emphasize sort of the augmented character in a melodic minor sound. So in this case it's on a G7 altered, and that means that the arpeggio that I'm playing is this G7 sharp 5. And that really has the augmented triad of course, and also the B and the F, which really gives us the sound of the dominant. And then I'm combining that with an upper structure triad, and that's an A flat minor triad, and that's giving us a flat 9, the 3rd and a flat 13, so really just a lot of color and really clearly spelling out a G altered chord. If there is an arpeggio that you use a lot in your playing and that I didn't talk about in this video, then feel free to leave a comment. I think we're all looking for more options and more ideas, so that's very useful if you share information like that, of course. If you want to explore some of the arpeggios that I talked about in this video and start practicing them and getting them into your playing, then check out this video where I'm talking about some different approaches and strategies for practicing arpeggios and working with them in a more musical way. If you want to learn more about jazz guitar and this is the first time you see one of my videos, then subscribe to my channel. These are the kind of videos that I publish every week. And if you want to help me keep making videos, then check out my Patreon page. That's about it for this week. Thank you for watching, and until next week.